And again, what is very interesting, that binary opposition almost annulled our possibility of thinking of some phenomena as, well, yes, shall we say, more or less cooked, milder, softer, more thought, less self-assurance, less optimism, more carefulness. And one other very interesting moment in that scientific inebriation. The thing is that overriding binarism resulted and still does result in ontologization, in series of ontologizations. Now, let us start with the simplest example. Culture. Because, in fact, Yuri Mikhailovich Lotman was absolutely right when he said that all applications of semiotics are applications to culture and to ourselves as specimens of culture. We do not and we cannot apply semiotics to anything but culture. That is, we apply it to that which has already been created by ourselves. Or we are applying to our own conceptual schemes and conceptualization created by us. And as my friend Smirnov put it very lucidly and clearly, one of the main postulates of semiotics is that the man creates culture, not a culture, not the culture, but culture. Culture with any article. And then that very man creates various conceptualizations, explaining to himself his creation. There is no raw, only cooked. We can do nothing about that. And let us not try. So the second presupposition. Sign. Semiotics as a branch of science investigating signs, systems of science. Various ways of organizing science in systems, and culture itself is presented in semiotics as a kind of gigantic combination of science together with users of science, together with all ways and instruments of using the science in one way or another. I think that universality of semiotics has at its foundation the idea of sign. But what is the first field, the first sphere where signs are realized, are manifested, are investigated, are generalized, and become aware of science. And so we are coming to the third, shall we say, ontological entity without which no semiotics is possible. The entity which in fact becomes the most important. The idea of text as universal. Culture, sign, and text. Everything in one way or another is culture. Culture is thought of in terms of signs. Wherever there is culture, there are signs. Starting with our own brain mechanisms. Forget about brain, please. It's a sheer fantasy. Okay. Anyway, but let us come to the third idea of text. So, culture, of course, is always a kind of combination of texts, variety of texts, a mass of texts. Text is given to us as a kind of artificial tool with which and by which culture is presented to our eyes, to our minds. And that is why the very term text began to be used universally. Text of everything. Text of culture, text of politics, poetical text, text of human behavior, text of ritual, text of everything. But, ladies and gentlemen, each and every universal category is very dubious philosophically for the simple reason that it is universal. A real science can deal only with that which is a result of a certain kind of differentiation or discrimination. So, text was at the beginning something concrete and specific. But we ended up with ideas like text of thinking, text of imagination. And if text can be text of anything, as a scientific notion, it must be entirely thrown out and forgotten, because it has already lost its specific and concrete meaning. And it is here that we may remember old Hegel. I do not like him, but nevertheless, he was quite a philosopher. And he used to say, I know I am the most abstract philosopher in the universe, but real thinking can be only concrete. And the most abstract notion becomes meaningful. I'm finishing to quote Hegel, meaningful only when it appropriates, when it acquires some absolutely concrete features and parameters. Now, what, in my opinion,